Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Common Lisp Study Group. I'm your host, Ron Batum with Atlanta Functional Programming. Today we're going to be talking on a library and discussing a library that has been quite a bit of demand since I uh, we kind of covered Roswell in 5 a.m. the last couple of weeks, and that is the qlot library. It's actually not just a library; it's more like a tool in addition to being a library. Um, this is kind of part of the honestly, this guy is a big shout out to this person, Eitaro Fukamachi, the author of Roswell. Qlot is kind of the natural extension to his tool chain, if you will. Um, Folks, I can't really say enough about his libraries and his tools just because I use a lot of them all the time. So I encourage most of you who are out there, to check them out and use them as much as you can. Provide bug reports so we can make these high quality, even more high quality, and provide more features to them than what they have today. And I'm not just talking about qlot, which we'll be discussing today, but we'll also uh, be talking about also this includes Roswell, Rove, Prove, and all of his other libraries, Caveman, Ningle. I think there's several of them. Just go look at his GitHub repository for more information. Before we start on actually showing demos about qlot, I thought it would be important to kind of discuss the use case that qlot tries to solve. And for that, we need to go and revisit um, ASDIF specifically, and eventually, what Quicklisp solved, and what was built on top of Quicklisp, which is what qlot attempts to solve. For those who want a single sentence, why am I here sort of like summary, a qlot is attempting to become kind of the equivalent to Ruby bundler, or for those coming from, say, Python, think the requirements.txt file that you would normally get before you set up a virtual env environment with everything localized. Um, this is a kind of separate file from the ASD file that you would normally have to set up, and we'll kind of cover some of that today, just to show you the format of the file and go through some examples of this. But let's first talk about ASDIF for a minute, okay? Because I think we have to kind of give credit to ASDIF and what ASDIF has done, honestly. Since when I started learning Common Lisp, this is back in 2006, uh, 2007. ASDIF really changed the game, for loading images into Lisps, and this includes SBCL, CCL, and so forth. And it was a great complement to actually learn and use this library, uh, especially given the fact that it was, even though it was low level at the time, and Quicklisp really did change the game later on in 2006, 2007. You have to remember, commercial lisps kind of were like the only game in town. Open source lisps were there. Like, you had CMUCL, you had ECL, you had CLisp, you had all these. But unfortunately, the library situation was difficult to kind of maintain, and primarily it was because system definitions, the notion of what bundles together and become a library, didn't really exist in a cross Lisp manner until ASDIF came out. And again, folks watching the stream, if my history is somewhat jaded or I'm missing a couple of points of view, feel free to add comments in the YouTube comments for discussion, and I will certainly correct myself either on Twitter or what have you, just so that we could set the record straight from a historic perspective, just to keep things in line. But one of the problems with ASDIF, and this is again circa 2007, it really kind of change the space, change the game for um, Lisp library management, if you will, or Lisp, because now you can actually take a tar file or which contains every all these different Lisp files, and you have a single file that you need to now load into your Lisp image, which will, based on how your system dependencies were set up, it'll go in and obviously load all those dependent files accordingly. All right. But one of the things that really was frustrating for me, at least, was the following, and that was you had to manually um, download all the libraries that a specific library that either you were um, using, or more importantly, it was a library that you were developing dependent on. Okay, so dependency management it was manual. All right, and that was a big problem, because if there was libraries that you weren't aware of and you had to go and load it into a Lisp image, you would end up spending some time actually figuring out, oh, wait, I don't have such and such installed. I have to go and download, say, cells. I have to go and download Lisp unit. I have to go download free unit, or I have to go download, whatever. And you have to go, figure out in some cases whether or not um, uh, the versions also matched. Okay, so another thing is version management was for a specific version uh, of a library was a problem. All right. So if there was a specific tag, you got to remember at this time in the 2008 era, 2007, 2008 era, Git was just starting. Darks was available at that time. And Mercurial was also available. A lot of Lisp libraries were using a lot of these different distributed version control systems, and of course, they were using version control systems like, say, SourceForge to actually go like these hosted platforms like SourceForge to go hosted their CVS Subversion repositories for folks to actually go and download and stuff. And you had this additional issue where their releases may not necessarily match their develop branch or master branch version, because they were still consistently committing to those branches. So if you, for example, just checked out their repository, and your particular library that we're using would needed a tagged version of this, you would end up, you might encountering a situation where APIs may have been broken. All right. So what QuickLisp did is it really kind of became another big win in the what I would like to call the Lisp library and Lisp dependency management kind of like situation, because now you had kind of a curated library again, um, curated set of libraries that you could use. All right. Um, this was also something that was released on a regular cadence. All right. So it will collect uh, a series of libraries every 6 months. It will cut a release uh, of those libraries either being available in QuickLisp, or the client itself would get updated. And if you downloaded that and using QL update client, then of course you would get an updated systems.txt, which would have all the available latest versions of every library. And if you were just so inclined to grab a particular version of a library, you could just simply say QL quick load and a library name, and boom, if the library name existed in that curated list, it'll get downloaded from quick Lisp servers um, and it will get installed into your Lisp image, and you're good to go, and you'll be able to move on. But again, as you could probably tell, while this really fixed dependency management, because now you have a single ASD file that will contain depends on, and for sake of example, we only need to go to what we've been covering the last couple of weeks, and that's in our AFP fact repository. If we go to this ASD file, we could see this depends on um, being available here. Um, that actually provided the two libraries that we would have to actually have loaded into the Lisp image. And if it isn't available, it'll go and attempt to download it. What QuickLisp does when you do a quick load, it will check to see if the Lisp image is available in the internal central registry. And if it doesn't, it'll go and download it into its own central registry and load that. Now, folks, just joining and learning Lisp, okay, one thing to probably note is when I talk about the ASDIF central registry, I know that might be new to most folks, and in many cases, you might be unaware that ASDIF has this global variable called the central registry for you to actually go in and modify if you have different Lisp distributions. And I mean, sorry, different folders on your system holding different Lisp libraries. And we're going to touch base on that today when we talk about qlot, because this is something that actually is important. And it's probably, and I'm more than likely sure that it's leveraged by qlot, this particular feature of ASDIF, to actually go and load libraries to do some of the magic behind the scenes. But the reason why I bring it up is the central registry is where Quicklisp will actually load a particular uh, Quicklisp will actually load into and check to see if a library is particularly available, and if it's not, it'll go and download it and install it into one of the directories in the central registry. More than likely, the local projects directory. Sorry, not the local projects directory, the dist directory that's available to your Lisp when you go and install Quicklisp for the first time. Um, if you've actually just installed it using Quicklisp quick installer, all right. Um, the other thing though that it did not fix though, or it did fix in a way, is version management. All right, but it did it in a very different way. Okay. Um, Many of you who may have seen my earlier videos on ASDF may have recognized or heard of this notion of the local Quicklisp disk server. All right. A lot of folks who wanted to kind of further curate and for a particular project wanted to use only a certain set of libraries, they would actually set up their libraries. They'll download all of them, create their own disks into disk server, set up QuickLisp and configure it so it points to that additional server, and then use that to actually go and download those libraries when they were trying to build their software. And this allowed, obviously certain libraries who wanted to keep, full control over their libraries and make sure that any given release of their libraries uses the appropriate versions of the different libraries that it depends on were actually available to them. It allowed them to actually have that full control over what is actually available, since they are in charge of the server upon which that information is actually being distributed. All right. Um, but there were other problems with QuickLisp in general. All right, that and again, these aren't necessarily problems when you look in the grand scheme of things, but certainly problems when you're trying to run and use multiple projects. Okay, and Zach, if anybody's watching this and pointing this to Zach Bean, I'm not saying that Quicklisp has its doesn't have, it's isn't great, or I'm belittling it. I'm just merely pointing out that, you know um I don't know, and honestly, I am not entirely sure how I might actually solve these problems myself. I can definitely say though that, if I'm running multiple projects, or developing multiple projects with different versions of different dependencies, this will become an issue. But what I'm talking about is global installation. Now, I'm sure many of you coming from Python or from, probably more importantly, say JavaScript, especially dealing with the Node package manager, are probably very familiar with this. But sometimes some tools or some libraries might be globally installed if you ran npm install dash g, or if you did, I think in Python's case, it's always, if you do not run virtually env, pip3 install actually does not do a local install. It actually goes and installs in some global system directory, where site package is local, so that it's available when you just type in python 3 at the command line. And this global installation becomes a problem, when you want to deal with multiple versions, especially if you didn't specify multiple versions. Now, I'm sure that there are probably some workarounds, to actually keep track of multiple versions in Python's case, probably in the same global system directory. Although I don't generally encourage that kind of nonsense, just because if you're running multiple version the local directory, it's going to get unwieldy just from a, system standpoint. Just if you want to go into a particular thing and see what version of a particular library that you have, you might accidentally, when you're trying to clean up shop, delete the wrong library that you're developing on, and now you have to go and re-download everything. So, just, uh, this is one of those things where it becomes, uh, uh, very problematic, especially when you're doing basic system administration. So, what does why does all this is all this necessary? Well, the desires that we really want is kind of something that is project local. So we define our projects, our ASD file and its dependencies, and we want to be able to specify what versions, a particular project is, installed, and you want all those downloaded and installed in, um, your project local directory, and you want it automatically set up so that, when you load your Lisp image using Quick Load, it will just go ahead and install or load those specific libraries from that project local directory. All right. So there shouldn't be any additional work from you as a developer to actually start up running a project or using a particular library. All right. If you're using this, this is what qlot is trying to solve. It basically allows you to set up a, project local, um, installation, if you will, okay, directory, or is probably a better word, that's automatically registered into as the central source registry, that that will keep track of all the local versions of a particular project, particular set of libraries that you need to build a particular project. All right. In many cases, this is very similar, if not identical, to, Ruby's bundler. Perl has something similar to this, like Carton. um, Obviously, JavaScript, for those who are doing npm, npm does this too. Although npm, I think some syntax has a little bit more. It does semantic versioning. I don't know to what extent, qlot's, semantic versioning, it works, where you can specify, greater than or less than or equal to, all this kind of stuff, just to get different libraries available. All right. So, um, that's kind of the use case behind, qlot. Now, qlot is available two ways. You can actually install it via Quicklisp, which is what we will do today. But in addition, I'm going to go ahead and install the command line tool, just because the command line tool is going to be very useful too as well, when we start doing much larger projects. You can install the command line tool. If you use Roswell, please reference our Roswell videos. You can go and install qlot through Roswell using Ros install. All right. But for now, we're going to just use quick load to grab qlot for the time being. All right. Now qlot has a command line tool, has a bunch of nice uh, features. Oh, before I forget, for those who are running Docker, okay, and are doing Lisp development via Docker by exposing a port, qlot does have a Docker image. I don't know in what extent, what use case you'd want to use qlot in isolation, particularly because of the fact that qlot its purpose is to actually go and be able to run, a .ql file and, install a .ql file with the local Lisp. But I'm guessing that that has a Lisp built in that you're going to be using. So I'm not going to focus on using Docker based qlot today. If folks want me to go through kind of a live tutorial of some of that setup, honestly, it would be fun for me too, just because I'm learning a new way of using Lisp, and I always like learning new ways of using Lisp. Um, I'll certainly set something up, but I'll let you guys, the audience, kind of decide how we want to kind of like set some of this up. All right. Now, um, let's start with some basics here. All right. qlot actually has a bunch of stuff, okay? Um, and the one thing that we need to start up with is we need to start a new project, okay? So we need to actually go and set up a new QL file, all right? What is a QL file? I think is important to know. A QL file is what qlot uses to actually go and document. Well, it's what you would use to document your dependencies for a new project. Um, for this, I don't think there is a easy way of doing this through qlot slash util. Hold on one second. Let me just make sure. I don't believe. Yeah, this does not have it. Let's do the simple use case. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to first set up a project. Let's say that we set up a new project. Okay, so for this, actually, I don't even need to do that. So we're going to go back to our project that we already have, this AFP fact repository. Again, it's a pretty dumb repository, I know, but this is our running repository for throughout these series of talks. All right, just because we could do a lot of stuff in there. All right. Um, this is already kind of set up to use 5 a.m. All right, but let's say that we want to fix the version of 5 a.m. we're actually using. All right. Um, so if you go to 5 a.m.'s GitHub. Uh, it would specify which version of 5em is around. You can actually go and look at dev. Give me a second here. Um, Actually, I think it's 5em. It's on GitLab, not in GitHub. Um, no, it is on GitHub. Give me just so where was the release? Ah, yes, here we go. Releases. So if you go to their release tab, you would see that the latest release was 142. Let's say that we want to fix 5em for being on 142, all right, for our AFP fact repository. So for first things first, we're going to first go ahead and set up using shell. We're going to go ahead and install. Oh, shoot. 1 second. Technical difficulties. Okay. Okay. So let's go ahead and install the command line tool because it's easier to set this up in the command line tool. All So qlot. When you first run qlot, you're going to see that there's a bunch of stuff here. All right. Um, we have qlot install, qlot update will update keep the .qlot directory in your local stuff up to date. So if you make changes into it and so forth, it'll set things up. But additionally, it gives you the ability to create uh, add stuff to your project, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to go into our AFP directory, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually just touch a QL file. This is something that I noticed that uh, uh, the empty file alone it cannot be is not auto generated. You have to create it. Okay. Now, when you look at this file, it's going to actually have files that it'll have a list of dependencies. All right, and the syntax is you will have the source that the directory is going to be in. Well, is the source is where you're going to actually download that particular dependency on from. The project is what obviously the project name, and then you can specify the version. All right. Now, um, there's actually two ways of creating adding stuff into your QL file. All right. Um, when you can actually use the qlot command, which is shown here, which I think is probably the first thing that we would attempt to do. We'll do qlot. Let's add ql 5am. Okay. And what we're doing is where I'm just setting up the qlot file right now. Um, and qlot will not this approach will not only add a dependency into qlot, it'll also download it from um, the official Quicklisp repository. And there's several ways of actually installing for with qlot. You can actually install using Quicklisp. Installs from Quicklisp, Git, I think specifically GitHub. But it is, I think, Git. Oh, Ultralisp is another one, which is another curated set of repositories. Just HTTP, if you actually have the specific URL that to download from, you could do that. Um, you can grab it from actually Git is separate from GitHub. Okay, so if you know, say the uh, the Git repository, like the actual uh, either GitHub URL that you might want to directly connect to, which if you know that, you may as well just go ahead and use GitHub, or let's say GitLab. If you're going to use GitLab, you could just use Git to actually download um, those dependencies. Ultralisp is another curated thing, like I said. GitHub is another direction, which is easier to do. Also, there is something called um, uh, dist. Now, what dist is Ultralisp is not itself a anything special. It's not a special command line tool. Ultralisp is actually another local quick Lisp disk server that we were talking about. All right, and there are plenty of those out there. Like if you go and look at Borodust's libraries, some of his libraries are actually available on either are both available on QuickLisp, and they're also available on I think a another local disk server which is available through his website. I encourage you to go and look at CLFlow. I'm forgetting right now the correct URL, and I don't want to mess it up. but he actually runs his own local disk. So if you want up to date or even more experimental versions of his libraries, he could certainly do so by grabbing it from his local disk. And then he would actually go and put it into Quicklisp at some point. Now, once you have this installed, let's actually go and look at what is ultimately written into our QL file, right? Here you can see that what we've ultimately done is oh, we don't care what version of the 5am project that we're using, but I want you to install 5am locally on a directory when you run qlot install, which we'll run in a minute, okay? And we'll see what happens when we do that. Um, when that's all said and done, and when you actually go and attempt to use it, there are some discretions. But let's say that we want to specifically say that we want 142. All right, let's change this up, and we're going to go back to our shell. We're just going to run, I think, qlot update will actually go and recognize the fact that we are attempting to grab um, the latest version. Ooh, okay, so we hit our first error. So we can't actually use the GitHub version when we do version 1.2. We have to actually use the download that we did. Where was it? It was, here we go. I think I just have to specify that. Okay, so let's go back to our Q file. Specify the 2020 version. Go back. That's when it was released or stored in it. Let's see if I do that. QL update. Sorry, qlot update. It's reading it. It's getting the systems. Okay, what is going on here? Let me see. Did I mess up the version? Ah, yes. Here we go. It's not just that. I have to also specify dashes coming from. Okay. There we go. So one of the things you may have quickly noticed here is since 5 a.m. depends on Alexandria, UIOP, ASDIF, and so forth, you didn't have to actually go and document those transitive dependencies, all right, into your QL file. QLot is nothing more than an additional convenience on top of Quicklisp. So everything else that's Quicklisp is doing that we all know and love, it does that for us. Now, if you really want to tighten your control over your project, just like Ruby bundle and Python requirements.txt and so forth, you could certainly add these additional dependencies into your uh, Quicklisp QL file into your QL file. And again, the syntax does not change. All right. Hold on one second. The syntax does not actually change. It's going to be, where am I downloading it from? Quicklisp, Ultralisp, Git, HTTP, some custom local disk, what have you. What is the project that I'm downloading? What is the version? All right, that's it. If you look at this, the folks in the room that are familiar with requirements.txt or with um, uh, 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 package.json will immediately recognize this being a convenient way of documenting your dependencies so that you can localize some stuff. So this is all great. Obviously it's good to have this, but it really doesn't, show off what additionally can this buy us. All right. And for this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have to actually go to a different directory and see if this will work. So this is going to be my first check to make sure that this is all kind of like checking stuff out. So the first thing we need to obviously do is we need to probably want to actually, you know what, before I do this, let me just show two more things about this. So far I've shown you how to edit. So far I've shown you how to the syntax for qlot, just and it's a pretty straightforward syntax. Okay. Um, but I have not actually shown you what if you have an existing qlot file and you want to add to it. Okay. For that you have qlot update. Qlot update basically says, okay, given an existing file, I want you to go ahead and modify that file and add some stuff. So let's say that we want to add Alexandria to this. All right. Um, Now that we've actually installed this, you can see. Um, Actually, I thought qlot updated. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm mixing things up. Qlot update actually just updates the distributions. Um, yeah, my apologies. I'm gonna have to go in. This is just normal qlot add. If you want to add more than one library into a project, you could certainly do so by just adding it additionally. Um, this is adds a new library. Oh, so if I want to add them multiply, I would have to go and define this myself. Interesting. Okay, so this is something I just learned. Okay, let me just go ahead and sorry. Um, Let me first kill this line here because I'm going to go and change this line. Um, okay, and let me go back into QL file. Let's kill the line that was created here. Go back to this and do what we were doing earlier, and let's add both of these libraries one at a time. Um, Interesting. Oh, right. My apologies. I have to go and add this. Um, I'm messing things up here. So first, do this. 5 a.m. QL 5 a.m. here. Let me add this again. Second. It is, unless I specify where I'm actually installing from, it does not go and default that the way I expect it to. I have to specify each one accordingly. Let's see if I do qlot. If I want to add more stuff. Oh, it looks like it's supposed to append, but it's not actually appending. Give me a second. Let me go and do something here. Add this. Line 3, duplicate project. Okay, that's fine. Let's do Alexandria. Hold on. File. Okay. There we go. Now we're cooking. So if I want to also now, what you have to go and you have to specify each new project that you want to install. Let's say that I want to install, just for the sake of example, QLSQL, SXQL. All right. Um, it will check to see what additional dependencies it needs to install, and it will go and install them. um, and then it'll go and download them. But the syntax is the same. Okay. You can also specify again each additional, and this is one of the versatilities of this tool. Each You do not need to in qlot only use Quicklisp or only use Git or only use alt, whatever you need for your project, whatever disks that you need, you could just go ahead and use that. Now, obviously, you must be careful because different discs have different curations, different cadences. They might be themselves hosting copies of local libraries whose versions are different than the version that the global Quicklisp server is using. So be careful on how you mix it. Know fully well that when you're doing this kind of bundling stuff, this dependency management, it becomes an issue. But adding libraries to your QL file is pretty straightforward. Updating them is also straightforward, like I showed you. A general update is just qlot update. It'll go ahead and read your qlot file, check against the global disk server's version, and just verify them. In the case of the I think Git and GitHub version, um, unless there were changes to that specific branch that you are checking out, where it will do a git pull, they more than likely will just stick with that particular branch line that you're checking out. And again, right now there aren't any specific projects that I'm looking at to kind of give folks examples, but it is something to be aware of. All right. Um, so I kind of showed how, all this is kind of like set up here. We have our our file here that we've created, okay, which has all of our dependencies, and it's getting updated in real time here. Obviously, I showed you that you could just specify the version here from that you're grabbing, and and you don't have to specify it for all. You could just specify it for some, and uh, this is something that you should correct with new lines and stuff like this. Um, and go ahead and grab that, kill this buffer, and do a quick qlot update. The next thing is we're going to do is we're going to actually go ahead and move this to a different directory and use qlot install to set up our environment. All right. So let us, and you can see here, this is one thing I wanted to show you. If you delete a dependency, either manually or I think there is a uh, a way to like remove dependencies too as well. But more than likely, you would probably edit the QL file if you're if you're doing that. Um, it will automatically, when you do a qlot update, it will automatically remove those dependencies from your system, which is nice for folks who are actually checking stuff out. It keeps a way to clean up shop, so to speak, and actually start from scratch. So let's go ahead and take this project that we've already have. Actually, for folks who are watching this, who are looking at this, I will check this guy in, add QL file, um, rmql file tilde, because we do not git commit dash m QL file for AFP fact project. And let's go ahead and push this into our server, right? So now it's available on the Atlanta GitHub repositories for you guys to play around. But let's go ahead and just pretend we're going to put it in another directory, all right? We're going to go ahead and move this, and let's move it. Let's copy it into. Do I have a local Quicklisp here? I think I do. I do. Okay. Local projects. So I have nothing in this local projects directory. Let's say that I downloaded this, even though I'm just copying it from my Roswell directory into this local projects directory. All right. Atlanta FP. And I downloaded it from using uh, Quicklisp's way of downloading from Roswell's way of downloading from GitHub. All right. I'm not doing that for the time being just because right now this is actually not set up to this directory, this quick list directory is not properly set up to load into any specific lists on my system. But I'm just kind of mentioning at this point that it is possible to do that as well if you have multiple quick Lisp installations. So we have now downloaded this directory. We could see that okay, let me get rid of this because I'm going to show this to you in a second. Let's say that we have a vanilla, okay, no hidden directory, okay? Because this qlot, the .qlot that I showed you earlier is the hidden directory that gets created. When you install using qlot install here, all right, it creates this .qlot directory much like what was it, in pip. It's in the site packages directory that's in your source bin when you do virtual env. In Node, for folks who are coming from the Node world, this is your, what is it called? Um, it's called, it's not, when you do npm install, it creates like a packages install that will have all your local packages that it downloaded in order to run this. That's what this is. This is the same thing. This, if you go into here, into qlot, you can see that essentially what .qlot sets up is a local quick Lisp installation, much like raw. And it sets up the asdef necessary to actually uh, uh, load everything accordingly. Now, this is where things get interesting. All right. We actually can run now using qlot and the qlot tool, qlot exec ros run, which is using Roswell internally that's installed in uh, that's installed on your system, but it's using qlot. Qlot uses this to first register the as if central source registry locally, and it'll actually then run whatever system list you want to actually use that as the central source registry with all your local projects. So this is kind of where it gets pretty neat. So now, if we load up our AFP fact here, okay, you can see that it just quickly loads up. Nothing actually causes any problems. We tried to test system. Remember, we've already set this up so we can actually run a fact test system. It'll actually go and load all the systems from our local registry. If you paid attention here, it's local registry, all right, in the .qlot, and it'll load that into your running Lisp image and then run the test systems. So everything is now localized to this directory. All right. If you switch to another directory with another set of dependencies, much like Ruby bundle, it will do the same. And it has a different set of dependencies. It'll do the same thing. This is one of the real nice things about this. All right. Now, what if you want to um, set this all up and get it ready for distribution. All right. For this, qlot also comes to the rescue. And let me first quit out of this to show this to you. Qlot comes to the rescue with qlot bundle. Qlot bundle, what this does is it actually sets up. Huh, interesting. It doesn't show up here in this version of qlot. Interesting. Okay. Um, looks like the version of qlot that I got from Roswell is not the latest version. uh, let's see if I can get from Roswell a different version. Um, Interesting. Hold on one second. This loads. Let me load this up here one more time. I messed this up. This is fresh off the presses. That's the reason. This was added. This was not actually yet released. So bundle. All right. So I'm gonna have to get the latest version of Roswell qlot uh, from GitHub to actually do this. So one second. Sometimes this happens. So where is qlot again installed? This is in Roswell bin qlot. Okay. So what I'm going to do instead, let me go back to, let me do this, ros install fukamachi qlot instead. So it's going to go and grab the GitHub version. Hopefully it will override this. So let's see what version now I have. Boom. Okay. So in the upcoming version of qlot, if you use the GitHub version, it will be available. Right now, the release version is different, and I think it's because it's downloading the one directly from the Quicklisp server to actually go and compile and get this working. You have this now, and if you run qlot bundle, this will actually, hopefully at some point, this is, I know, experimental right now. It will actually create a bundle libs directory, much in the same guise as how you set up your not JavaScript. I think Python has a way of bundling up your, no, Ruby has a bundling up a way of using Ruby bundler all your dependencies into a directory called bundle libs, and it has a single Ruby file that you just need to load up and you'll get everything up and available. That's what this is attempting to do. Of course, this is experimental. Sorry, Fukamachi, I didn't realize I jumped the gun a little bit here. I will create a follow-up video to this once that stabilizes, just to show you how it works. But the point of all of this is now one of the advantages of all this is for those of us who are coming in from a CI perspective, we have our, you know, um, our where was it? It's in our GitHub. Recall when we were setting up our CI system, we wrote in our .github um, in our workflows the steps to actually set up 5 a.m. and run 5 a.m. and all this stuff. Um, this now, this RAS, where is it? This now, if you want to run this and set this up so that if you're doing it locally, you can set these scripts up so that in your local server, instead of polluting your global Roswell installation, if you have one, you can just set up using qlot to actually go and do local CI testing and so forth, which is kind of useful. And again, as I mentioned, if you have multiple projects, you can run different libraries, and so to speak. So that's really it for qlot. There isn't a whole lot in terms of kind of like showing kind of special commands, just because the heart of it is setting up this QL file that we saw before. Um, um, this QL file that we saw before, and again, um, you could see the different versions on it. I encourage you to use this tool just because it's again just a nice way of localizing all your dependencies and setting it up so, much like Ruby for or Python for project development in Common Lisp. And this way, your dependencies are well documented, and you'll be able to at least have some confidence in their versions when being available when you actually go and download them locally. Now, I'm not going to say everything will be like this, because some Git repositories, or sorry, in the case of Quicklisp, it might, for other purposes, might clean up old releases that aren't necessarily valid anymore, or are are deprecated and shouldn't be really used in production Lisp code. And in those cases, obviously, there might be announcements as to, hey, we're removing this and that. But that's up to the library authors. And as long as you keep qlot's QL files up to date, all your dependencies dreams are pretty much kind of at least solved for the time being, outside of some probably particular edge cases that at this point I can't really think of. Are there any questions? All right. Well, if there's nothing else, as I said, today was probably going to be a bit short, just given the material and the subject matter. But I encourage you guys to look at the qlot documentation. Let me know what is going on, what is not going on, and if there's something specific that you want me to test, let me know. Before I let you all go, two final remarks about qlot. One is those of you who are using Slime, and the only reason I didn't cover this is because I use Sylvester, and I don't think this actually will work for me. Um, qlot has Slime integration, and there's a way in your Emacs Lisp um, for you to write a command so you could set it up to use qlot to do local project. Kind of It'll essentially start up Roswell, and specifically your local common Lisp, and hook its Swank server up into your Emacs buffer. So you can actually switch between different projects running different local Lisp images, not connecting to the same Quick Lisp repository, which I think is pretty neat. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't think this is available right now for Sylvester. I think that piece is pretty straightforward. Once I see how their Slime Emacs Lisp is written, I could probably write something equivalent to that. But right now, it doesn't exist. So for those of us who are in the, hey, I like Sylvester better than Slime, this is one of the disadvantages of it. um, so until next time, I will see you guys soon. New topics again. Those who want me to cover a specific topic or a deep dive, let me know. I'm available on Functional Programming Slack. I squat in the Lisp channel all the time. I'm also on the Lisp Discord server as Bugram. And finally, I'm also available in on Twitter as Unix Nerd. So if you guys are um, you know, I want to give a shout out, go ahead. you know, just writing my Twitter handle here, you know, is Unix nerd, and my Slack handle is Bugram. So feel free to ping me on functional programming Slack or the Lisp Discord server. And the Lisp Discord server is also um, Bugram too as well. If you have any topics, if you want to even give a talk, we are looking for speakers. I'm more than willing to host a Lisp C speaker. So if there's a cool Lisp project or something that you want to really showcase, by all means, come and talk to us and show it up. And we will be your venue. Uh, but until next week, thanks.